Hey there, Wastelander, and welcome back to Fallout on Tabletop. We have previously been looking at some of the models and contents of the Fallout Factions Nuka World 2-player starter set, and we've gone through the box, its contents, and we've assembled models for both the operators and the pack, the two factions you get in the box, and we have painted the operators and we have gotten them based, or at least a few of them, enough to get started. And so now in this episode, it's about time to get the pack all painted up. So we are going to be going through and painting a few of them as well. Just like the operators, will be going through kind of that slap chop method of just getting a light dry brush of white over gray, and then using a variety of the Army Painter 2.0 speed paints to get them done. And then we'll just base them the same way as the operators, as they are going to be fighting over the same parts of the Nuka world parks and everything. So it makes sense that they would have the same base. So if you're interested in how I got some of these painted, or at least just one method of getting them painted, stick around for the rest of the video. There is going to be the list of paints as well that I used down below in the description, along with some affiliate links that if you want to pick them up yourself, you can go ahead and click on those, and they do help out the channel. Speaking of helping out the channel, if this or any other video regarding Fallout miniatures, Fallout factions, and painting them up is something you're interested in, you can always like and subscribe for more. All right, so here we are going to be painting some members of the pack using the same sort of process as we did for the operators, which you can see standing by in the back there, more painted and based. And so we're going to get some members of the pack done so we can start having them fight over Nuka World and other parts of the wasteland. Like the operators, I did go ahead and prime these already using first the Army Painter Uniform Gray and then a zenithal of the Ash Gray. And you can see that it's a little bit the Ash Gray zenithal being on top of the Uniform Gray. It's a little bit lighter. And so now that we have them primed and dry, we'll start with the slab chop method of dry brushing. Do have over here a matte white and the Brigade Gray. Both of these are a lighter color than what we've currently got on our model. So going to actually just do, unlike last time where I did a matte white, going to use the Brigade Gray on these models, and do have the dry brush. Again, this is a Army Painter one, but you can do different dry brushes, makeup brushes, whichever you have available. And so just like the last time too, I'll get my old kind of palette, got my cleaner water here that do want to make sure that there's a little bit of water on the brush because you don't want it to actually just be dry. Get it on a somewhat clean spot there and just get a little bit on the brush and dry it and wipe off a bit more of it. But unlike an actual dry brush where we're wanting to only hit the highlights, we want to hit a lot more of the model. So if we get most of it, covered with our Brigade Gray, that will be fine, because that will help with the contrast paints. So we'll go ahead and get this all over the model here. and adding more paint to our dry brush as we need. And okay, so I had to go ahead and re-glue this guy back to his base, but then I got him back on and finished dry brushing that Brigade Gray onto the models so that way we can start painting them up. And so we have our speed paints there in the back as well. Unlike the operators, the pack is a little bit more garish in their coloration and a little bit less uniform, but to just not use a whole bunch of paints to get the models done, going to just use a few of these and use the same ones but on different parts of the model. So if we use like a color on one of the model's pants, we'll go ahead and maybe use that as like a spot color for armor or the other model's shirt. That way we can just use the same color instead of being a bit more uniform like with the operators. They'll still have like the same color palette, but spread in different areas. Also, unlike the last video, we'll just be painting two of the models. That's because with like the Psycho here, you can see he's got a lot of different armor and like gear on. There's like bones here. There's like, of course, the little teddy bear as a part of this armor, as well as like a old oxygen tank. And then this kind of lower level like waster scaver who's only got kind of like a t-shirt with these weird fur pants. So a lot of different textures that the speed paint will do well with, but just using the two models because of kind of the variation in armor is just basically they have none of it and kind of look like this model here on the right, or they have like this chest piece and backpack and like all this extra stuff. So just going to go with two to show the difference between them. But we'll go ahead and start with murder scene, and we're going to get most of the like larger parts first, kind of like we did with the operators, and that way we can kind of see how the model will look too as we get like some of the bigger parts done first. And then like the last video as well, we'll do kind of like another extra highlight, and then that way can see how it looks when it's almost complete, but then hit it again with another dry brush to really make some of those details pop. So taking our murder scene here first, on this model, going to go ahead and apply that on the fur pants. Don't know where they came across these pants or if they made them themselves, but either way, we'll go ahead and get that kind of dark red burgundy color here on the pants for this model, and then we'll go ahead and put this kind of just on the torso of our other model. So once we get that done here on the legs and the torso, we'll then move on to our next color. Okay, so we finished up the murder scene both on the pants here and the shirt of this model. You can see even like a little bit right there by the neck. Whether or not this model is wearing a long sleeve shirt, or you want to make it a short sleeve shirt and color in that part or paint in that part of the arm with like a skin tone, that is up to you, but I just kept it all one color here for now. And then the next color we'll go through to now is the High Lord Blue, and we'll just switch this up on our models here. It may just be a little bit easier or easy way out of getting these models done, but then again, when you get 10 models in the box, you can have paint them in like sets of 2 like this and just kind of alternate some of the colors. And then maybe on like those other 2 models, I might have like a green and a purple for their legs and torsos. And so it's up to you, but we'll just do this for some simplicity, at least with these models. So here we'll just go again, get the torso. It is like a cutoff shirt, or it has like a long part for the neck, so we're not going to get all of that part. And so we'll just get the blue on here. There is some patches that we can hit later with some other colors, but for now we'll just paint the entirety of this model here with the blue, at least on her torso. And we'll go to some of the shirt here actually will leave because it's kind of part of this undershirt. So we'll just be doing kind of like a tank top on this one. And so once we get the blue done, we'll go on to our next color. Okay, so we have now finished up the blue on this gentleman's pants and the blue on this lady's shirt. And so you can see in maybe some of the box art that, like, especially these pants are like a lot of different colors, but again, we're trying to also limit our palette and not just use like 300 paints when getting these models painted. So just went ahead and painted all the way down on the legs there. Next, we are going to get a little bit more uniform actually and use this Lizard Folk Cyan on their shoes, because they seem to be wearing almost like a kind of Converse style shoe. And so we'll only get part of the shoe, and so for that we'll get a smaller, more detailed brush. You may want to, as a heads up, do that as well, because there is a lot of fine detail on these models with all the extra pieces that they have. And so you can see here that the model has like the shoe, the front part of the shoe, and then kind of like that the actual like part with like past the toe into the heel. So we'll just get that part with our Lizard Folk Cyan. And because we'll do the rest of that part of the shoe, or the parts we're not getting with the Lizard Folk Cyan, with just like a gray or white. So once we get the shoes done, we'll be able to move on to our next color. Okay, we have finished up our Lizard Folk Cyan on parts of their shoe. We'll go ahead and get those finished up here in a moment, but we'll hit more of the kind of darker, or not darker, but larger color areas. And so we'll kind of now move on to the other parts of like their clothing. So this one we'll go ahead and get a opposite color kind of with the Charming Chartreuse. And so we'll go ahead and get that added to our kind of palette here. So we'll go ahead and start with that on at least the parts of the torso on our model here, including the areas of the sleeve, or that would be the sleeve. And if the colors clash a bit, that is fine, because that is more appropriate for these models. For the back, try to avoid the parts of the necklace, but if we get a little bit on there, that will be fine. We can touch up that with a little bit of white or gray when we actually want to get it painted. Okay, so we'll go ahead and finish up this color so we can move on to the next one. Okay, so we have finished up the Charming Chartreuse. As you can see, kind of opposites again, with the being it on the like undershirt and parts of this kind of leg armor. And again, like, even though we're kind of just bouncing back and inversing the colors, For now, when you have 10 models in the box, you can just take 2 or 3 of them and kind of do this repeating pattern where you do some colors on the torso, and then just the next model you put those on the legs, and then you could take a whole nother set of colors and do the same thing, and then that way they tie together as a force, but still have some individualism because they are just random raiders that aren't really worried about a uniform color. So next we are going to go with dusk red. It's a little browner red, obviously, from the look of it, and we're going to use that on some of the like kind of leather armor on both the shoulders, at least of this model, and both of them actually have that on their shoulders, so that will be easy to kind of just have it be a more uniform option because it is like armor. And so we'll have it here on both the shoulder of this model, but then we'll also get it on her knees that we saw. We'll have those unpainted after using our murder scene red. And so now we'll go ahead and just get those done. It is a similar kind of color, but we can always apply a little bit more of our dusk red to that as well, so it stands out just a little bit. We'll go ahead and get that finished up then on here and move on to our next color. Okay, so we went ahead and finished up the dusk red just here on some of like that shoulder armor on the models. You can see it is pretty similar to our murder scene, but we can go ahead and get a different or more contrast later when we kind of hit these again with some highlights. But then we'll go ahead and move on to kind of this other fur using bony matter. One of the models here, this guy does have some actual bones, so we'll use the pallid bone for that. But for this other kind of like fur, kind of make it like a lighter beige color, the bony matter works well for that. So we'll use this on basically anywhere that they have this like frill of fur. So like right here on this model, and then like just this whole part of his leg here as well. So we'll go ahead and get that done on the legs, but then we'll also be getting that on, you can see, on his arm, the lower part of his arm near the gun. Then once we get this color done on both models, we'll go on to our next one. Okay, so we've finished up the bony matter on any part of the model with a little bit of that different kind of fur texture, mostly on the arms or torso, depending on our particular model. So next, we'll go ahead and get some of the wood, mostly with the 2 weapons. We'll go ahead and use our satchel brown that we used before for some leather, but we'll go ahead and just use that as a brown for our wooden weapons. We'll get this just plank of wood and the baseball bat. So kind of want to go with the grain of the wood. Really gets the heart of the speed paint in the grooves of the wood. And then we'll also do the same for the baseball bat. And of note, the baseball bat does have metal alongside around it, so we'll be careful to not get too much of that metal with our brown. But once we get our weapons done, we'll move on to our next color. Okay, so we finished up the satchel brown on the wooden weapons of both our models, taking care to not get too much of like the barbed wire that's wrapped around the baseball bat. And so now that we've got the wood down, we'll go ahead and get a few of the other details, although we can see from our models here that one of them's got a little bit more detail, but we'll go ahead and start actually getting some of the skin done, and for that we'll use peachy flesh and crusader skin. I'll just go ahead and do peachy flesh on the model to the right and the crusader skin on the model to the left, but you can use this, both of these. You can use one of these colors, or you can switch it up. But they basically just have their hands exposed and parts of their face. If you use the models like this with the masks, or this gentleman has a little bit, you can see hair, but then like right in there's going to be a little bit for the skin. If you just do that all as like the hair color, you'll be fine as well. People generally won't look that close or that much to like the nape of a model's neck. But we'll go ahead and get our peachy flesh and crusader flesh here on our appropriate models so we can get the flesh done. Okay, so we've gone ahead and done our flesh tones on both of our models. You can see the slight variation with those. Next, we are going to hit a few of the bigger spots, and so for that we're going to get a red here for this kind of like gas tank or oxygen tank or whatever it used to be, and we'll use poppy red for that. And we'll hit a little bit of color on the other model as well, but similar to like we saw with the operators, that some of them have just more parts to paint than the others. So we'll go ahead and just be getting the gas tank on the back here, as well as some of these like just flat pieces on this knee, or like not knee, but leg, and some parts of the other model if we can find some. So we'll go ahead and get this poppy red here on it. It's nice bright red, keeping in theme with the pack. We'll try to avoid this crisscross of kind of straps as well. So for this, I've been using a lot thinner or more of a detail brush as well to try to get and leave a lot of these parts as well. But if you get a little bit too much on, or in parts where you don't want to, you can always let it dry or try to use a little bit of water to move it out and desaturate the speed paint from that area, and then hit it with your white or gray again. Just go ahead and get these parts of the tank as well. But once we get this red done, we'll go ahead and move on to our next color. Okay, so we have that poppy red now done on both of our models here with that back piece and just some random scrap metal attached to their leg, but then also this kind of necklace that this model's got going on. So now we'll get a little bit more of the last little bits of like leather done, and that we will use the hardened leather. And so for this, I'll be applying that to like the straps on the back of, like if they have it on their mask like this model does, you can see that like thin little line for that, as well as these right here on the gas tank. And you can see I did get a little bit of red, but the brown should be able to cover that up, and we'll get that on the parts of the torso and then the different parts of the weapons for this model as well. So again, wanting to use a thin brush, but also not get too much of the paint on the model or on the brush. For parts like this, it's pretty simple to just get the parts that you need with the color, but when you're getting some more of that fine detail, you want to make sure you don't have too much of the paint on the brush, because then it will go places that you don't want it to. And so we'll get that to here on the handle part, trying to avoid too much of the metal and just get part of the grip. So I'll go ahead and get this color finished on all the models. Move on to the next. Okay, so we've finished up the hardened leather on like this part of its chest piece and some of the other random bits of the leather on the model here as well. So the next thing we'll go ahead and do is use the ashen stone just on parts of the shoes to get those done, because we got part of that done a while ago. So just get all the kind of parts that weren't painted on the shoe with that lizard folk cyan, hit those with our ashen stone to get it a little bit more color and uniformity. So once we get that little detail done, we'll go ahead and move to our next color. Okay, now that we finished up the shoes with the ashen gray, going to get a little bit more of the details done. With this gentleman, we got the horns and these bones, and we'll just use the palette bone. On the other model doesn't have any kind of natural elements like that, so we will just be hitting those on this model as we are getting close to finish. So we'll just hit the bones on the leg and the antlers on the like headdress mask. So you can see here. And once we get that done, we'll be able to go on to our next colors. Okay, we finished up the bone parts on this model. The other one didn't have any that we were going to do, so we'll go ahead and get some metal on here. This time we'll use the Broadsword Silver metallic speed paint, and we'll get, at least for the models here with the pistols, and then we'll get also on like this model, we'll get these tubes and also like this kind of back part that they have as like their armor. So go ahead and get that done first with getting some of the pistol done. And then once we get all of the metal parts done, including like on this guy's baseball bat, we'll move on to our last few colors. Okay, so we have now the metal parts done here, more on like the pistol and parts of like these tubes connecting to that backpack, as well as our pistol on this model here. So we've only got like a little bit left here with like the stuffed animal, the masks and hair, and some extra stuff here as well. So for the hair, we'll just use the same color and we'll use the desolate brown, as we are getting up there on our palette. So we'll just use this on both the models and call it good with their hair. They have a little bit, more or less depending on their face mask, but just get that as like a dark, kind of dirty blonde hair. So once we finish up with the hair, we can get on to those last few details with their masks. Okay, so we finished up both models' hair with the same color, that desolate brown. And if you want to make one darker, you can just add a little bit more color to it, or not use your speed paint medium, or you could add speed paint medium to the other ones, and that way it's a little bit lighter. But we'll go ahead and get these last details with some of these iconic masks. The first one, this bird one, seems appropriate to use yellow. So just use yellow on this one. Just do the whole mask. It does have separate eye parts, but we're going to go with a darker color on there after the yellow dries, so we don't really need to worry about getting those details covered up, because we can just, with it being a lighter yellow color, we can just get the whole part of the mask from the face all the way to the point of it. So we'll go ahead and get that there done with the yellow. And then while this is drying, we can go on to the other mask. And for that one, we'll go ahead and use this purple swarm, even though it is like a kind of antelope or deer creature, it seems, with the antlers, or maybe a rad stag, but it's all still the pack, and they have a lot of crazy colors. So we'll get that purple swarm here on our brush, and again we'll just kind of hit the entirety of the mask. The last little details like the eyes we'll go ahead and get with the grim black there that we see, and so that way we can just get the whole part, and because the last bits we'll have are going to be black, that's not too big of a deal that we cover up some of those. So we'll go ahead and get that finished and let these dry. Okay, so we have both the start of the masks done with our maize yellow and our purple swarm. So the last thing we'll do is we'll get that bear done here, and this little pack of sand here. So we'll go ahead and just use some Gravelord Grey on that, or at least the part of the ground that the one model is kind of jumping off of. And so just a quick application there. There's not too much of this kind of stone part. We'll fix some of those gaps with our basing that we do later. But there, that we've got now the rock done that this model is jumping off of. And to not use a bunch more colors, we'll go ahead and just paint the bear with that maize yellow, keeping some kind of uniformity to them and some matching colors. So once we get this done, basically just have a little bit of detail that we'll get on the masks with the eye parts. So we've got now the little teddy bear done, and there's some extra parts on there that we could either do separate, or we could use our Brigade Gray to hit that detail, or we can just leave it all one color. Depends on how much extra detail you want to do. you can always just leave it and then get those parts done at another time. So go ahead and just get this Grim Black done or down, and then that way we can finish up the models. And then if we want at another later date after playing a few games, we can make some additions or upgrades to our paint scheme. So we'll just get like the eyes with the black. Maybe it's a weird take on a bird, or maybe an insect, like a blood bug. But we'll go ahead and get the eyes done. Both the models and let that settle, and then we should be good to go. On this guy, it's a little bit smaller of like a eye, so just dot that there, and so we'll be now good to go. So we have our models now done and ready for the tabletop, at least painted wise. We'll go ahead and get them based similarly to the other ones after I actually do a little bit more painting. And we'll just do the Grim Black again on whatever these little dangly bits are. And then we'll say we're done, at least with painting the models. And then we can get them based the same way as the operators in back and start playing some games. So we have the finished painted models. We'll go ahead and get them based here in a moment, similarly to how the operators were based. But then once we get a few more models of the pack completed, we can go ahead and start having them fight over parts of Nuka World. All right, and there we have painting up some members of the pack. Did only paint up 2 of them in the video, but I'll get a few more painted up so that way it's a roughly even force for the operators to fight against in a game of Fallout Factions. So now that the models are painted and based, going to start showing off the game proper, like the rules and scenarios and just how to play, and then eventually, once we get our feet wet with the game and the contents of the starter set more, we'll then start to branch off into all the other awesome and fun factions that are available in the game. As the time of recording this video, the expanded crew folio is either out or about to come out, depending on where you live in the world, and so there's even more Fallout factions added to Fallout Factions, and then we'll also be at times looking at other Fallout related games as well. So if all those are something you're looking forward to just getting more information on or learning about, you can again like and subscribe for those upcoming videos. Otherwise, thanks for stopping by.